I have seen hundreds of startup pitches ideas. The one that fails usually make one key distinction. The unsuccessful one sells AI. The successful one sells a solution to a specific measurable pain point. The next frontier, it's embedding AI samples directly into the software development pipeline. These models can flag the risky code in real time, predict vulnerabilities before they even deploy, and ensure the continuous compliance. It's about building self-defending systems. AI ops involves using LLM as brains to coordinate complex infrastructure tasks. My research involved LLM-based root cause analysis. So instead of engineers spending hours digging through logs, an AI agent can analyze the cloud outage, diagnose the failure, and even propose a fix. This isn't just automation, it's autonomous remediation. As a full stack software engineer with cloud experience, I'm utilizing AI to solve some developer experience challenges. What I'm trying to do is use AI to cut down those 100 hours into a 5-minute task.
Explain why AI, we want to move away from the black box models of LLMs and say, okay, how do they get that answer? Akshay Mittal is a researcher and technologist specializing in AI-augmented DevSecOps and secure cloud-native infrastructure, with over a decade of experience driving mission-critical innovation across academic and industry sectors.
What I love about AI space is that you constantly bridge the gap between the high-level theory and practical in the trench applications. How do we take a complex academic concept from a research paper and actually use it to solve a real-time problem at enterprise scale? We'll separate the successful AI companies from one that end up being headlined for the breach.
All right, everybody, welcome to the AI Space Podcast. AI isn't just the future, it's a force rewriting the rules of business, wealth creation, and society. If you're a founder, innovator, or technologist, this is the AI show for you. The question you have to ask yourself is, will I blaze a path, follow the crowd, or be left in the dust? This is season 2, the 6th episode, and we're thrilled to have Akshay Mittal, AI researcher, and he also works at PayPal. Akshay Mittal is a researcher and technologist specializing in AI-augmented DevSecOps and secure cloud-native infrastructure, with over a decade of experience driving mission-critical innovation across academic and industry sectors. I'm Sanjay Kalluvilayil, founder and CEO of Stonehouse Advisors, your trusted advisor for AI founders and businesses focused on go-to-market strategy and execution. Akshay, first of all, welcome on the AI Space Podcast. We jump right in to highlight game-changing insights that help founders and technologists drive innovation and scale business initiatives. Once again, first of all, welcome. But what do you see as the key trends in AI going into 2026?
Thank you, Sanjay, for having me. The hottest trend, right? That's a great question. Beyond the obvious answer of bigger and bigger LLM, I see 3 major trends that are defining the next practical enterprise-grade AI. First, AI-augmented DevSecOps. That is the move from reactive to predictive security. For years, we have used AI to detect breaches after they occur. The next frontier, it's embedding AI samples directly into the software development pipeline. These models can flag the risky code in real time, predict vulnerabilities before they even deploy, and ensure the continuous compliance with standards like PCI, DSS, and SOC 2. It's about building self-defending systems. I actually published a paper at SCDE in Arizona. It's called Leveraging Generative AI for Proactive Security and Automated Remediation in Cloud Native. We have developed a framework called GenSec AI Ops that utilizes the retrieval augmented generation, which is called RAG, to integrate a specialized AI agent throughout the pipeline. The results were pretty impressive. We saw a significant improvement in detecting accuracy and remediation correctness, all while maintaining the pipeline velocity. That's the kind of practical impact that matters. Number 2, the rise of agent ops. We are moving past simple chatbot into a world of autonomous AI agent. This trend, which I call AI ops, involves using LLM as brains to coordinate complex infrastructure tasks. My research involved LLM-based root cause analysis. So instead of engineers spending hours digging through logs, an AI agent can analyze the cloud outage, diagnose the failure, and even propose a fix. This isn't just automation, it's autonomous remediation. I have an upcoming paper end of the year in ICA, one of a Dubai conference called Performance Optimization of LLM-based agentic workflow in a Kubernetes environment, where we deep dive into the bottlenecks and solution for running these agentic workflows at scale. This is one thing to build agent, it's another to make production ready in a Kubernetes, handle millions of requests. And finally, most important one is explainable and secure AI, XAI, right? As AI moves into critical infrastructure like finance, where I work, it works in no longer sufficient, right? We have to be able to prove how it works. This is the field of explainable AI. It's non-negotiable for responsible development. My work focuses on creating explainable threat detection models. If the AI flags a transaction or a code change, we must be able to ask, hey, why did you flag this? And probably get a clear, human readable answer. This build trust and is essential for regulation and compliance. In fact, 2 months back or a month back, we won a Best Paper Award at YumCon, a New York conference, for which it's a unified framework for mitigation of hallucination in large language models. The framework integrates internal and external validation, strategizes the LLM to make it more reliable and explainable. When you're dealing with like financial transaction or security decision, you can have a black box making those calls. I hope I was able to answer.
Yeah, definitely. And I think especially on the last one, the explainable AI, we want to move away from the black box models of LLMs and say, okay, how do they get that answer to be able to understand, or any sort of AI tool, how do you get to a conclusion or to be able to validate, especially if you're making a decision on logs or some sort of remediation, what was the decision tree for that to happen, right? What do you see as the top AI strategies to grow and scale a business?
From my experience working at companies like PayPal, Charles Schwab, and Home Depot, scaling isn't just getting bigger and bigger, right? It's about getting smarter and more resilient. Top strategies that reflect are like first, automating the core processes, not just the peripherals, right? Many companies begin utilizing AI to automate small peripheral tasks. The real scale win is when you apply to your most critical complex bottlenecks. At Charles Schwab, I led an automation project for a massive data center migration. We cut a 24-month project into 6 months, saving an estimated over $3 million. That scaling strategy using AI and automation to do the impossible and free up those immense capital and human resources, right? Second, like embedding AI for real-time quality and security. You can't scale a broken, insecure product, right? At PayPal, where I work on optimizing API experience for over 1,000 plus services with over 50 million transactions a day, we can't rely on manual or after effect quality check. The strategy is to build the AI driven policy and security validation directly into the pipeline. So to ensure that every single change is compliant and secure before it reaches to every single customer. It's a shift left approach that prevents costly errors from scaling in the first place. And finally, use AI to scale your people. Technology doesn't scale a business, people do, right? The business strategy is to use AI as co-pilot to upskill the entire workforce. This is a huge passion of mine. I founded ACM Austin chapter and co-led AI collective in Austin with IEEE Gen AI work group. Throughout this and other workshop, I have helped train over 1,000 US engineers by creating open source framework and training materials. We are not just building a tool, we are scaling the entire operational capability to use that tool.
I think it's important to think about. A lot of people will say, hey, I just need to grow and scale. But if I can summarize it, if you're losing $1 every time you engage in business and you do that a million times, now you've just lost $1 million, right? So if you're not injecting quality, if you're not optimizing the processes, if you're not ensuring quality, right? Just because you want to get time to market, that's great. But if the quality is not there, then you're just going to exacerbate the errors, right? And in AI is, you want to is about minimizing errors. And the other thing you said too is about impact, right? I think we hear about job loss. We hear about, hey, everyone wants to reduce their workforce by 10% or X percent. And you never hear, well, I want to have my workforce be impacted where they're able to be 10% more effective or to 10x their capabilities without giving them more work and, without decreasing their work-life balance, right? And I think we need to get into some of those things as we get further into the discussion. So, we can take a step back. Akshay, first of all, welcome to the show. Thanks for helping me kick this off in season 2. I know you have before we get into your background, I know you have a disclaimer that you want to say about, even though you are with PayPal, you have a disclaimer about that, right?
Yeah, certainly. I would like to share with audience the view and opinions statements I'm making in this podcast are solely based on my personal experience. Whatsoever, they do not reflect anything related to PayPal and its affiliated subsidiary. And PayPal has not authorized or endorsed, any content of this interview. So this is all with my personal PhD research and my volunteering experience outside work.
Yeah, and the AI podcast, just give everyone a background too. I launched my consulting business over a year ago, working with AI founders to grow and scale. Someone approached me to launch a podcast. I said, hey, why don't I give back? I'm sure other people trying to figure out this AI space. Why don't I invite founders, technologists, innovators, scientists, researchers, people who are actually building in the space to give insights? How do you grow and scale business? Let's get away from the hype, not nana banana this or chat GPT 5.0 or, DeepSeek this, it's like, okay, what's realistic and what's practical, right? And so, we've had CEOs, CTOs, product managers, researchers, and, a lot of times they may be from the CXO, but we also want to, like you, we're going to get into your a PhD candidate, right? And you're doing quite a bit in terms of AI research and building the community. So Akshay, first of all, welcome, and we'll get into like how we met and all that stuff. But tell us a little bit about your early roles and your path into AI.
My career has largely been about addressing a central problem. How do we build and scale secure digital system in an increasing complex in cloud native world, right? I began my bachelor's and master's degree in computer science from Texas State, which gave me a strong foundation in full stack development. In my early career role, I was building systems for Fortune 500 clients. I kept running into same wall. The teams building the software and the teams securing were operating in separate silos. There was a huge gap between them, right? And huge source of risk and inefficiency. That led me to a senior role at place like Charles Schwab, where I was sole architect for network automation framework. That project compressing, as we mentioned earlier, compressing 2 years migration into 6 months. That was a light bulb moment. I saw that intelligent automation wasn't just to have, nice to have. It was the only way to manage scale and complexity of modern cloud system. That experience fully immersed me in AI and ML space. That's why now I'm pursuing my PhD in AI ML driven security and automation at University of the Cumberlands. My dissertation is focused on exact problem, building self-healing AI-augmented security system. Today at PayPal, I'm a member of technical staff software engineer, where I apply this principle to optimize and secure API system that handles 50 million daily transaction. That's 1.53 trillion in annual transaction volume we are protecting. It's a massive responsibility, but it's also an incredible opportunity to apply research at scale. I try to bridge the gap between industry and academy.
Cool. No, I mean, it looks like it's a wonderful journey, your progression in the space. So I know you've written quite a bit of papers, right? First of all, tell us about your papers, but how do you get the time, dude? He seems like you got so many out there. But just tell us about your papers, and then how do you manage the time, right?
Yeah, I think time management is one thing, I would like to thank my supportive wife. So I have a toddler, whenever the toddler goes to sleep, I kind of like be a Batman and start thinking about my research idea, dissertation, and work with my co-authors and sometimes solo to write some amazing research paper. I'm always curious, how AI field is evolving, and I try to bridge the gap between the industry and academy, because having that industry mindset, getting that academic mindset, I have co-authored.
So how many papers have you put out there now?
It's over 25 papers as of today.
How many this year?
This year around 15 to 15, I would say. This was a busy, good year, and with various publication across IEEE, ACM, Springer Nature venues. I actually received two Best Paper awards at IEEE UMCon, which was in New York last month. One for on LLM hallucination mitigation and other for sequential recommendation. That was pretty exciting because getting two Best Paper award at the same conference for different track is pretty rare.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And then also from a community perspective, you're quite involved. Tell us about maybe some of the communities that you're involved with.
I firmly believe like importance of building community. This is my way to give back to the community. So I founded ACM Austin meetup chapter where I serve as a co-lead for engaging speakers. I also give a couple of lightning talks there. But the idea is to share knowledge from industry experts. So panelists bring experts in industry to kind of help. We grew from zero to I believe we started in June 2025, and now we are almost 600 plus strong, almost 700 I believe. And I also co-lead some of the other meetups such as AI Collective, if you've heard about it, as well as like Kubernetes Austin, and help as a technical advisor for Texas State University to help students map them. With this, over the time, I have helped over 1,000 people to follow their dreams, become get like probably jobs or level up, and basically train in software engineering and cloud, and now AI and ML as I learn. That's
Yeah. So what does ACM stand for?
ECM stands for Association of Computer Machinery, which is they're all across the world focusing on sharing knowledge, specifically for scholars in research related activities and all across like various domains. AI is one just tip of the iceberg, but there are plenty of other things.
And been involved with hackathons and pitch startups and you've been a judge and all these things, right?
Yeah, I got few opportunities to be a judge in hackathons, looking at some amazing projects. 10 years back, I used to be on the other side, taking part in hackathon. It's really good to be on this side of the table where you're seeing all the amazing ideas come into play in a limited time. So definitely hackathons are my favorite.
And then from an industry association, which are the ones that you're kind of associated with?
Industry association, I would say, Kubernetes Austin has been pretty good. All like pretty much everybody in Austin is from various industries, and everybody use Kubernetes, Dockers, and similar cloud native environments. Where we talk about various technical topics every month. We also have like Gen AI Collective, or now it's called AI Collective. They have various events for founders. And if I remember right, Sanjay, you were also part of one of our event in Austin. So
Yeah. Actually, it was kind of funny. I was attending an AI event in Austin through somebody else, and I was just planning to go as a guest. And actually, you reached out to me on LinkedIn to be a speaker at the event, right? And then through that, I met Nancy Burdett and some other, connected with Jay Crowley, and so it actually opened up some other doors for me in a sense. I always had a question: is like, yeah, I think you were doing some search for a speaker, and I actually ended up speaking on the revenue side of the AI stuff. But what resonated from my profile for you to kind of like, hey, let's have Sanjay come as a speaker? This is like spring of this year, right? Spring of 2025.
looking at your profile, you are industry leader in AI and ML, and you carry a lot of experience. It was really nice. I remember our session went really well. You answered 10 of questions with Mario and others. I believe Balaji. So
Yeah.
it's pretty.
Mario, Lazo, and Balaji. Yeah. Great. So tell us a little bit more about your current role. Like, I know you mentioned some of the things that you do, but without getting into anything that's like PayPal secrets or anything like that, but from a general perspective, what do you do on a day-to-day?
Pretty much, everybody is rushing towards AI and ML, right? Right now, as a full stack software engineer with cloud experience, I'm utilizing AI to solve some developer experience challenges. Without sharing too much detail, I would say developers spend a lot of time reviewing things which are super important for our API experience. What I'm trying to do is use AI to cut down those 100 hours into a 5-minute task, something like that. So that, and in fact, I think I can share this. And because of those efforts I've been doing for 6 months, yesterday we got an award at PayPal, internal award, obviously, for innovation excellence out of multiple teams at whole PayPal. So pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's cool. I think this episode comes out a few weeks later, but okay, very cool. Congratulations to you and the team, right? Before we continue, where's the best place for folks to connect with you and follow you?
My LinkedIn is the best place to connect. Anybody can find me. if they have any questions, or I'm happy to help with any way I can.
Yeah, well, everyone definitely like, comment, subscribe to the AI Space podcast. It helps us grow the show and have more innovative guests like Akshay. And then if you're stuck in your business, book a meeting with me and we can talk how to move you forward. So let's take us, everyone, you're a technologist. Let's take a step forward in terms of what tools and frameworks do you think going forward in 2026 are essential for building a solid AI ML architecture and tech stack? Let's talk about methodology, frameworks, architecture, platforms, tools, however you want to. Let's start from just some methodology and frameworks. Let's start from that. What do you see as going into 2026?
Yeah, going into 2026, the the stack will focus on is scalability, reproducibility, and security. Group of this essential tool into four layer, right? Such as talking the first layer would be the foundation layer, that is cloud native. This is a non-negotiable, right? As per my experience, Kubernetes is a de facto operating system for modern AI. It is the only way to manage the massive disruptive computing that this model requires. I have also published a deep dive in optimizing this LLM based agentic workflow in Kubernetes environment, and the performances characteristics are fascinating. You can't just throw a model into container and hope it to scale. So this is very foundation. Second, ML ops orchestration layer. In addition to Kubernetes, you will need the tools to manage this AI lifecycle itself. This is MLOps. Frameworks like Kubeflow and K-serves are essential. This isn't just about training the model, right? It's about versioning it, deploying it, and monitoring for the drift, and doing it all reproducibly. Right? I'm actually contributing to a K-serve ecosystem because I believe it's so fundamental. When you're dealing with like production AI system, you definitely need that level of operational maturity. And third is agent layer. This is one of the brains of operation, right? Especially for generative AI. This means tools like LangChain, Llama Index, which allows you to connect LLMs to your data sources and APIs, enabling them to reason and take action. I have been working a little bit on this framework. We have published a paper on federated LLM agent in edge computing environments like at AIMS 2025. The challenge is making this agent reliable and cost effective at scale. And finally, the fourth layer, the guardrails layer. This is the most critical layer and the core areas of expertise. These are the security and validation tool inside the CI/CD pipelines. This isn't just like the single tool, but a framework of AI-driven policy engines like Open Policy Agent, but with an enhanced AI. And real-time vulnerability scanners, right? These are the tools that ensure AI is secure, compliant, and explainable. I have some papers which I'm working on, which kind of talks more about it. It's a focus of my PhD in publication, and I believe it's what will separate the successful AI companies from one that end up being headlined for the breach.
Question for you. If you look back upon 2025, right? Maybe what's one thing that's been a bit surprising you from a technology perspective? It's like kind of like an aha or wow, I didn't think of that. Or maybe people haven't really thought about this, kind of like something that's different, right?
So I would say like how this AI landscape is evolving, right? Every week or every 2 weeks, we see how it is changing. Time is limited for people to upscale at this scale. How AI is booming today, that would be like a surprising or aha moment to just keep up with the trends going on.
Yeah, I think, yes, a lot of times it's overwhelming, something new's coming out, and I don't have the time to go sit down for 3 hours and go learn something per se, right? So I've come up with a little bit more of being very laser focused. Call it whether it's playing, I wouldn't even call it playing, it's more like snacking. But I'm trying to solve a specific business problem, say it's for my podcast, for my consulting business. Then I'll go try an AI tool or something to solve that for 15, 30 minutes or whatever to figure out that problem. Instead of going to try and doing some general learning, can I use it to actually improve my quality, improve my creativity, improve my time to market, whatever, improve my cost, my efficiency, and that's how I'm using it. But there's just too much out there, right? And so, like, if I for example, let's say like, there's an image generation, like the latest Flux Pro versus Google VO, on the video side. So then, yeah, if I have to create an image for the podcast, then I'll go to Night Cafe and try Flux versus another model, or I'll try Kling versus Runway versus VO and see which one makes the best. And I can do that in 15 minutes, right? Versus trying to go learn every single thing about every single app that's out there, right?
Certainly, there are tons of tool out there, whether it is creating image or creating video, anything pretty much, even like a study buddy, right? I use Notebook LM a lot. Like it has been evolving crazy good from creating notes, creating audio, and pretty much everything, you know?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like before, Google wasn't. I think it wasn't so great, especially on the Gemini side. Gemini 3.0 came out. I think it's doing much better. Especially some of the because I've used all the LLMs, right? And I have my own custom GPT and Chat GPT. I've used Perplexity. Claude is out there too. And then Gemini actually has some good capabilities. But I did find out where I posted some screenshots, like the chat wasn't giving me the best answer. So I actually went into Perplexity and chose Gemini as the model, and it did a better job of capturing the screenshots in the chat and being able to answer the questions. So are there any insights you have from whether it's like a LLM tool, any automation tool, or image generation tool? Maybe what are some tips and tricks that you've seen,
I would say, I mean, as you mentioned, like using ChatGPT for certain works, Gemini for certain works, Claude, Perplexity, Grok. I personally like Claude Code, which is a CLI-based tool as a software engineer, as well as some IDE-based tools such as Cursor, GitHub Copilot, Windsurf. I have used all three of them. I'm actively using Cursor. I want to give a shout out to Byte Rover, where you log in with that add-on. It remembers what context you spoke forever, almost from the start of the chat. If you have noticed, over the time you sometimes lose the memory, like while you keep chatting or iterating on some problem. Some tools which helps you remember the memory context and some best practices. There are some tools like Byte Rover which kind of helps you do that. Second thing I noticed is I really like working with Claude for personal reasons. Like as a software engineer, I think Claude is one of the best. Claude offers one of the best models for coding whatsoever. So
And well, I think most of the vibe coding tools are wrappers on top of Claude, anyways, right? They have Claude underneath, right?
I think so. Yeah, that's definitely true. One best practices, I mean, if I want to share with audiences, I always create context based on claude.md file. So according to Claude, if you have like claude.md and you put everything you need to, and you can use Claude to create that. You just provide enough question, use specific keywords like think or ask me questions, and you kind of go back and forth. You can have a claude.md in your root of your project, like parent and child. If you have multiple projects, it works like magic. It's kind of like your first place. Claude will go and understand everything and kind of stay hyper focused.
Yeah, and if someone's not as tech savvy, right, and don't know how to prompt or anything, you can type some stuff in and actually ask these LLMs, I'm sure Claude too, to actually optimize your prompt and to give you an outline of the steps. And then, you can get a draft, then actually put that draft in again to give you a more structured approach. Because I've noticed when you use some of these vibe coding tools, right, yeah, they're great for some prototypes, but, then you tell it to fix one thing, then it breaks everything else, right? And so if you don't, if you don't have like a structured approach. I think that they're probably getting better now, but that's been some of the challenges earlier in the year with some of the vibe coding tools that stability. And then when you get to the actual deployment, authentication, security, those are issues too, right?
Yeah, I think ChatGPT released a separate module for prompt optimizer, as we were saying, So sometimes, like if I want a very specific things to do, I follow this strategy. I provide as much as detail as possible, but kind of optimize that prompt to expect a proper deterministic result. Because as you mentioned, they hallucinate sometimes, they do something that they're not supposed to. You need to have some guardrails around it all the time to kind of test out.
Yeah, one thing that's a little surprising for me, I had the sense that the current foundational models, I think as we evolve AI, I think they may have to be evolved. And what came out with the discussion on the Victor Fang episode, it was Anchain.ai, and we were talking about, attention is all you need, etc. And I was doing some research for that episode, and it was amazing the way, we hear about compute costs and the memory issues and all this stuff. And, when you do embedding, especially when you're training, right, to get that embedding, you have to do, if you have n comparisons, you're doing, n items, or tokens, you have n squared comparisons, right? So every time you double, you're doing a quadratic scaling. So if you do have 1,000,000 tokens, you do 1,000,000 squared, and then if you do double that and then you square that, that's a quadratic increase, right? That drives a lot of the costs and the challenges in these LMs. Maybe as more of a technical person and research in this area, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think token optimization is something where everybody, want to focus on. I have been hearing a lot of people are vibe coding, and if you look at the forms, they're building some amazing tools, but they're not able to optimize token. The amount of money they're making with their ideas the AI costing is more than they can kind of manage. So token optimization is something where everybody is kind of focused on, because with this MCP, A2A, A2P, a lot of protocols, right? We need some kind of guardrail around it to provide input and get that better output in a limited fashion without utilizing too much token. There are some best practices around it to mention in the query that, or context that, hey, I'm looking for a very specific thing. You need to respond it very specific. Like example, in one of the side projects I was doing, I gave a very specific prompt that you are expert in this is blah blah blah. I'm gonna give you this without because sometimes if you notice, sometimes it gives too much information out. Like I will give you an issue, a line number with the issue. I will also give you the context, the solution. I want you to give me an one-liner or multi-line answer. That's it. No giving back in JSON or Markdown. I just want to offer. So if you be very specific, I think that really helped me. I was analyzing my token usage. That really helped me went from like utilizing 1,000 token versus just getting into 100 to 100. And I'm talking this in few API calls. Imagine just doing at scale. This could optimize in a way 10x times.
Yeah, no. And then you talk about Kubernetes and cloud-based, etc. My one thing I do on this podcast also to dive deeper and challenge some assumptions too. But what about in the case of what I've understand, especially for pre-training, maybe something like bare metal or Slurm is better than the Kubernetes, especially because of the way things work, right? What are your thoughts on that?
I think definitely. I mean, using some less managed service is always good when you are in the starting phase of your idea. But when you start growing your customer base and growing, utilizing more things, and you are at the time where you want to scale more but have more control, you can definitely think about going there. But one
I
cap.
guess on the pre-training side, I'm looking more like you need dedicated resources and make sure that the resources are available. And then I think in Kubernetes they come on one at a time, or maybe there's the different ways they come on. So if you're doing pre-training, you need all the resources, or it doesn't work the training, right? Maybe you can your thoughts on that,
When you mention like pre-training of models,
like on the LLM side and everything else, before you get into all the fancy stuff like Agentic. For Agentic, all this stuff, I guess what you're saying, Kubernetes, etc., would work, right? But when you need more, when it's about latency and the actual dedicated resources, a lot of times Kubernetes or a cloud environment can't guarantee that, right?
it doesn't. There's a lot of like management required where you have to kind of control the whole thing when you're running those LLM models. Specifically, what you provide in, right, for the pre-training models. Instead of that, I would recommend, initially for pre-training, it's always better to use some cloud models where we can run them. Maybe there are a lot of tools available in LangChain, which are even open source.
So, what do you see going into 2026 and beyond in terms of the long term for AI, ML? How do you see it evolving?
I feel in 2026, answer is, like agentic AI, where you have one master and multiple small LLMs working on one thing or one agent, which solves a bigger problem. Any example, if you want to consider an agentic solution where you have something, let's say shopping for an item, or building a vacation plan. So you have one agent which searches for your flight, one agent searches for hotel, one for rental car, and all together this master agent control all of them and giving you a better output than one agent doing one thing.
That's more like multi-agent, a little bit orchestration type
Right.
activity, right? Very good. Let's shift gears a little bit. What about the AI space podcast resonate with you and say, hey, I'd like to be a guest on the show, right?
What I love about AI space is that you constantly bridge the gap between the high level theory and practical in the trench applications, right? You just don't just talk about what if of AI. You bring on the guests who are talking to and how to. Throughout my entire career, my passion for community leadership, it have been about this exact bridge. How do we take a complex academic concept from a research paper and actually use it to solve a real-time problem at enterprise scale. Your podcast feels like a high spirit in that mission. So you're democratizing this complex, high-stake knowledge, making it accessible to all the founders, engineers, and business leaders. That's what is the most exciting part of this conversation today.
No, I appreciate that, and we don't always only talk about technology too, right? Like you said, we talk about the trends, how to scale a business. Now we're going to talk about vision, strategy, and mindset. We're going to talk about sales and marketing, operations, democratization, ethical and responsible. So I want ethical and responsible AI. We're going to talk about more about guardrails. It's a holistic approach, right? And I want to bring the conversation. It's not okay. You have a business founder, you have a technology CTO, you have a scientist. Be able to talk to each other and understand, at least have some common connections that we can build the space in a good way, right? So in terms of critical insights around vision, mindset, strategy, what do you see as critical for long-term success?
Vision is about seeing the problem behind the problem. The initial problem isn't we need an AI. The real problem is we need to deliver secure financial service to millions of people instantly and reliably. AI just happens to be the most powerful tool to solve that problem right now. But the long-term success comes from being married to the problem, not the tool. And talking about mindset must be that of continuous learner. This field is changing every 6 months, right? What we knew 2 years ago is already legacy. This is why, I'm pursuing PhD while working at PayPal, right? Why I conducted so many, peer reviews for the journals, conferences. We must stay on a cutting edge by reading the research and testing it. The mindset is I am never done learning. Definitely that process of, evaluating the cutting edge research keeps me sharp, force me to stay current. Plus, when you're reviewing and you're seeing what's actually coming out there before it hit the mainstream, that's really useful, So the peer reviewing of reading other people work before it goes live, that's being a judge of it is really helping me improve my mindset as well. And talking about strategy, my core strategy is community over code. A brilliant tool built is isolation, is useless, right? Long-term success is a lagging indicator of how much you have enabled others. It's why I'm so passionate about open source, founding ACM chapter and leading community groups by sharing knowledge, writing blogs, speaking, public speaking or tech talks. I have given some tech talks and commit to code, ML ops and some LastCon, the security conference, and amazing, had a very good 2025 that you build that community which scales your vision far beyond what you could do alone. Right?
Oh, that's great. And then, always shift gears a little bit. The biggest challenge for any startups is really getting their initial clients. So from a sales and marketing perspective, are there any insights you can share, on maybe those are trying to figure, I know this is not your core domain, but I'm sure you have insights on how to approach that, getting your first clients and building your clientele, right?
It's really interesting, as you know, I'm not a salesperson by trade, but as in judge, I have judged for accelerators like Mass Challenge. I have seen hundreds of startup pitches ideas. The one that fails usually make one key distinction. The unsuccessful one sells AI. The successful one sells a solution to a specific measurable pain point. They don't lead with how they lead with what they say. You are losing $5 million a year on X. Our tool cut that by 60% in first 6 months. My work is same. When I lead the automation wherever, the sale wasn't let's use the cool framework. The sale was this was a 24-month high risk migration that can be done in 6 months by saving millions of dollars. That's how AI and automation, but what was tangible? The undeniable business value. So my insight is sell the result, not the algorithm.
No, that's great. Actually, on this season, the first episode, Dan Sinwat talked about going viral, and part of that is what is your story, to be able to articulate that story. And I think that talk when I came down to Austin in April was, I said, if you're not solving a pain point that resonates with your customers and you can clearly articulate that's going to deliver the results that they expect, and they're not willing to pay for it on a repeated basis, there's a problem, right? Something to that effect, right? If your customers aren't willing to pay for it, like if, this is a nice to have, right? I mean, it's a horrible example. I've used this many times, but I would never want you to put a hot plate on my arm. But if I was bleeding, I'd pay you $100 to put a hot plate on my arm, right? So is it something that's going to address solve a problem for them? And like you said, they're not buying your consulting, they're not buying your AI, they're not buying your cool AI agents. They're buying the results. And the results are, and sometimes you have to uncover those results. They may be business objectives, they may be personal objectives, right? Be able to uncover that and to be able to communicate that, and at the end is building that relationship, authentic relationship and experience, right, is how anyone's going to be successful going forward. Then, once you get some clients, etc., right, what have you seen in terms of streamlining operations and scaling a business?
For sharing the details, Sanjay. I 100% agree with you. And remember you mentioning that too, which kind of bring back the memory. About, streamline my operation and scale a business. This is my passion. My entire career has been focused on this. I have three-part framework. First, measure everything. You cannot streamline what you do not measure. At PayPal, we driven by metrics such as P95 latency, API error rates. At Home Depot, we were measured on-time delivery percentage and fleet fuel cost, right? You must have clear quantitative baseline for your operation. Second, automate the bottlenecks. Once you know your baseline, you find the biggest bottleneck and automate it. At THD, I led an automation initiative for the tax platform. We cut the manual tax processing by 70%. That's a massive operational win that free up human expert to work on a bigger problem, high value problem. Number three, build for self-healing. This is a key to true scale, right? Don't just build system that fails gracefully. Build system that fixes themselves. This is where the PhD research I'm working on, self-healing remediation agent, comes in. When an AI detects a cloud misconfiguration, it shouldn't just send an alert, right? Example, just imagine 2 a.m. you're just getting an alert. Or imagine in this way, at 2 a.m. you got an alert, you have an AI agent who understand that alert, did something, go through the log, already have a solution, and without clicking a button, that AI agent fix your issue, which could have been a disaster, which could have lost a lot of money, right? That's where the self-healing example comes in. It shouldn't be like empowered to correct the problem automatically. It's like beside on the predefined policy, right? That's how you scale your operation 100 times without scaling the operation team. I have similar paper for one
Yeah,
of
just a quick insight there that resonated with me, because when I started my career, right, I was at Ernst & Young Management Consulting doing business process transformation. We took technology implementations down from 6 months to 90 days to 60 days to 30 days. I was a business process lead. So what you said, we mapped the baseline, the current state, see the way things are, what's manual, what systems are being used, et cetera. And then, identify basically what you said, like, what are the bottlenecks? What are the things that are like driving it to make it last 6 months, right? What can we improve? And to be able to remap that or put it into a system, et cetera, right? Well, I think it's one thing that's important. People do these initiatives too. Then it's like, they think it's like a monolithic project and it's a static result. Any entrepreneur knows that you have to be able to iterate. And, what I like about what you're saying about self-healing or optimization is that if you can use these AI systems or agents or tools, instead of you having to go iterate and fix everything every time to evolve in terms of lifecycle management, how can tools and systems and frameworks be used to continually evolve and optimize, your results, right? And especially you have to be able to measure you have to know what your metrics are too, right?
that really helps to move forward
Yeah.
than others.
So in terms of democratization, right? AI is a great democratizer, but what do you see as the key challenges and opportunities in making AI accessible to founders and businesses from a variety of industries, experiences, and backgrounds? How can we bridge the gap?
That's a great question. The biggest challenge is twofold. It's the it's a talent gap and the trust gap. The talent gap is the obvious one, right? The technology is complex. There aren't enough people who knows how to use it. The trust gap is more subtle. People are afraid of AI. They don't understand it, or they have been burned by the hype. The opportunity lies in between both gaps simultaneously. The solution is community-led education and open source initiative. That's one of the reason, like this community events, we have collected and trained over thousands of engineers by these various tech talks. We bridge the talent gap by hosting hands-on workshop, Q&A panel sessions, tech talks, right? Publishing like frameworks and open tool projects such as, I have one of the tools such as CloudyBot on my GitHub. It's like a chat bot, right? For any DevOps related problem. I was curious. This was my first project I built where AI, it uses ML to answer this. We bridge this trust gap by doing this in public, in a community setting where anybody can ask questions, AMA sessions, right? Democratizing isn't just about making easy to use tool. It's about creating easy to learn knowledge and a supportive community where it's to save by the beginner. That's how we make AI accessible to everybody. And when you make your research and tool accessible, you're not just sharing code, you're sharing knowledge. That's the real democratization.
Yeah, no, I think that's what I love about the show too, is because you're a young guy, right? You come from the tech side. I come from the business side. And, in 2026, this year, I'm going to be 53. So I actually transitioned to AI when I turned 50, got some certifications and started doing this. So I haven't, now I'm taking my 30 plus years of business experience and, using it AI and growing this podcast. It's been going really well, right? And then, we're actually going in 2026, we're going to move into some live events, where, have a live podcast plus networking event, maybe 100 plus people. Also exploring to do some maybe training sessions, hackathons. I know you're doing stuff in Austin. We had talked about, me coming down there for some of your events, hopefully in the future. And then I was hoping to come in December, but that didn't work out. But, after this, sometime we'll sync up and figure out how we can collaborate on some of these events, right?
Honored to have you back. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to work with you going forward on some of these things, especially from the technical side of things too, right? So in terms of ethical AI, right, how do we balance AI innovation with responsible development? I think it's important that you mentioned that trust layer, the guardrails, et cetera, right? So can you expand on that?
This is the most important question in our field, right? Moving fast, break things is just a philosophy, right? When you're dealing with people's financial data or critical infrastructure, for me, responsible development isn't just about separate step. It's a set of pillars you build on top of innovation on top of, right? Pillar number one, security. You cannot be ethical if your system is vulnerable and leaks user data, right? It's that simple. My work have been around, DevSecOps, AI-augmented DevSecOps. It's all about like building security in form line one, not like bolting it to the end. Pillar number two, compliance. It's critical field like finance. Ethic means adhering to all the rules and regulation that protects consumers, like PCI, DSS, and SOC 2. My research on adaptive cloud policy validation, it involves AI enforces these rules automatically, right? Ensuring we remain compliant even when we innovate. Pillar number three, explainability. We should not trust black boxes with some important decisions, right? My work on explainable threat detection focuses on ensuring we can always ask AI, hey, why did this flag? Why was the transaction suspicious, right? And receive a clear and human readable answer. This is what it's important, the pillars, all security, compliance, explainability, right? When you're using LLM for security decision, you can't have them hallucinate or make up reasons, right? The framework integrates this internal validation to checking their own model's confidence with external validation, what is available out to ensure the reliability and the explainability. On flip side, gas innovation is like a gas pedal, but responsibility built on security, compliance, and explainability is like a brake and steering wheel. You kind of need both to get anywhere safely.
No, you're absolutely right. I had an episode with Darren Fields, and he likes to race bikes. And I tell him, obviously he's very pro risk, but obviously he wouldn't. I told him you wouldn't be if you were only pro risk, you wouldn't be alive to be on this podcast. Because if you ever bent over on a motorcycle, right, you're hanging between life and death, right? So you have to have some sort of invisible guardrails, right? And people say, oh, we don't need any guardrails. We got to drive innovation. But you bring up a excellent point. Is that if it's financial data, private data, there's huge ramifications, and there's actually large ramifications for humanity coming down the road with job loss, et cetera, right? And one thing I want to make sure, obviously we talk about business and technology on this podcast, but from day one, we've talked about democratization and ethical and responsible data. There needs to be governance model frameworks in place so that we build a better future for ourselves, our families, and, society at the end of the day, right? So in terms of encouragement, any concluding thoughts, insights, encouragement to those seeking to get into this space or struggling to build their business?
The biggest message is this, get involved. AI is evolving, isn't just a spectator sport. It's not something just to watch from the sideline. It's something to participate in. You don't need to be a PhD data scientist to contribute. You're an engineer, go to your local meetup. whether it is in person or online, right? I'm active in, multiple community groups as we discussed, right? They're full of people just starting out. If you're a founder, identify a real problem and start building a solution. My second thought is don't be intimidated. This entire field is being built right now by people who are constantly learning, right? I have over like 10 to 12 years of experience publishing so many papers, and I'm still learning every single day. I spend some time out by reading something new, what's out there, and kind of always make me curious to kind of dig deeper. That's just my PhD brings, that's why that made me, pursue my PhD, because I've been doing it for 5 to 6 years, and hopefully, if everything goes down, I'll be done mid this year. Nobody has all these answers, right? The field moves too fast for anyone to be definitive expert on everything. The key is to pick a problem you're passionate about and deep dive. As you were saying, you take out 10-15 minutes, play with the tool, kind of keep going back and forth. I think that's the idea. If you're passionate about something, deep dive. And an example is going from one LLM to trying 3 to 4 and putting everything together and kind of learning more about it, right? For me, it was the intersection of AI and security. I started with the practical problems at company like Schwab and PayPal. Then I took those learning and turned them into a research. Right? That cycle of industry to research and back is incredibly powerful journey for me. Be curious, be bold, and focus on building solution that addresses real-time problems. And most importantly, join the communities, right? Seek a mentor, find a mentor who you can ask questions and share what you have learned. We are building this future together.
No, that's I think that's wonderful. And in terms of just try, play with these tools, just have fun, right? If you're just starting out, if it's a simple recipe, right? And outside of work, I'll use the LLMs. I'll actually explore etymologies of words and languages and scripts and actually some religious texts, and I'll challenge the LLMs. And a lot of these LLMs, they'll quote, like, they'll say X, Y, and Z is true, and I said, this doesn't make sense. Then they quote a Wikipedia or some other source, and they make a claim, and going back to hallucinations, making up something or using very poor citation.
Fake source.
And I'll actually ask it, show me the exact text where this is stated. It's like, oh, it doesn't exist. They made it up. So don't always assume what the tool produces is correct. And I also like what you said too, is like, maybe somebody's in manufacturing, maybe somebody's in security, maybe somebody's a blue collar worker, maybe somebody's in the medical space, right? If you see a problem, if you see a pain point that hasn't been solved, right? Is there a way to bring in AI to either improve the quality, improve the cost, to get to the results that you want, and explore with it and play with it, right? And and see, is there a story around that would resonate with other people? And I think maybe, and then if you're on the more senior side, right? Yeah, continually to read the white papers, write white papers, engage, teach. I think those are critical insights, right?
When you're senior, it's the best way to teach is to learn. When you teach, you learn more. So that really helps. Participating in tech events, and I would say take part in hackathon. You have some ideas, take part in hackathon, use that pressure, challenging time to build something. You will not only learn more about the tool and technologies you're using, but you will meet some amazing people which kind of change all your perspective about various things. I can say 100% I have met some amazing folks who have changed my mindset, how I think, how I solve problems. And at the end of the day, you're making a new friend. So please do that.
Yeah, we can definitely talk all day about the future of the AI space, right? I'm sure from this conversation we've gained a lot of insights. I know every episode I gain insights from my guests, and I apply for the next episode to grow my business, to become a better expert, and to iterate. That optimization, right? So in turn, we're coming out of time, but for our listeners, where's the best place again for them to connect with you?
Yeah, please connect me on LinkedIn. I'm Akshay Mittal. And thank you so much, Sanjay. It's kind of like my first long version of a podcast. I really felt good, challenged, and I'm not perfect, but I'm still a learner every day. So if you have any ideas, you want to ask questions or collaborate with me, please reach out on my LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure Sanjay will post a link to that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Thank you again.
Yeah, and you know what? This is I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I remember my very first episode I showed up on. I didn't even know where to look. I didn't know what to do. I was, people said I was nervous. I could still be a little nervous right now too, but it doesn't matter. It's because we're just having fun. We're trying to learn. We're trying to grow. Thanks again, Akshay. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. and find us on your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify or Apple. Akshay, once again, I learned a lot from this episode. I can't thank you enough. I'm so glad we met, earlier in 2025. Thanks for sharing your insights with us today. Thanks so much.
Yep, thank you. Like, share, subscribe.
I'm your host, Sanjay Kalluvilayil, founder and CEO of Stonehouse Advisors, also creator and host of the AI Space podcast. I hope you gained a wealth of game-changing, real-world insights to grow, transform, and scale to new levels and dimensions, leveraging AI. See you all next time. Thanks so much.